Hey, everybody. It's another fun-filled edition of Locked On Guardians Catcher Rankings. Some old friend alerts I didn't alert Justin about, and a fun guessing game. Those are always a favorite. We'll get into it on today's Locked On.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Locked On Guardians. Thank you for making Locked On Guardians your first listen today and every day wherever you get podcasts. If you missed the after show yesterday, I'm sorry to the Mad Thinker, longtime friend. We just talked about second base some more. Not to say that you shouldn't go watch if you want more depth, but we did have some people who are sad that they don't know what's happening. So I wanted to throw that out there. Speaking of throwing things out there, I am Jeff Ellis, Locked On. I feel like a real shill right now. Been in Locked On since the inception of the Baseball Network. Might be doing some crossover podcasts outside of network soon. That's going to be some exciting stuff for both of us. But I'll throw it to you, Justin, and then I'm going to throw some quick old friend alerts in after that.
Oh, I think I know who one of the old friends is. I'm pretty sure I do. But yes, I'm Justin. I don't have any Locked On gear. I got what is that? That little, that's not a tote bag. It's like a little fanny pack without the.
Well, I call it like a toiletry bag.
Yeah, it's a little one, a small one of those. I have one of those. That's all I got. Should I be putting that like on my chest or wearing it? I don't know. I should be doing, but
so
that's all I have so far. I would be happy to wear anything Locked On, as I've now been podcasting with you since October, and I'm looking forward to the season starting again, so we can do a lot more of these things. But as annoying as I annoyed as I am with the off season at this point, with it being January, and I feel like every day is the same. We are getting into the depths of prospect list season, which I do love. So we will have a lot more prospect content coming up, today and throughout the month of January, and of course February as well.
Yeah, and I'm just gonna that statement made me be like, oh yeah, I started this stuff back in 2019. So that's why I got like 4 Locked On shirts and a bevy of other items at this point in time through my era of Locked On, as it were.
I gotta prove myself, huh?
Yeah, well, I think that's how it is. I mean, I'll be what is it? I mean, it's 2019, so I'll be getting like my 4-year. Like you get one on your. We don't have to get into that. So Heath Hembree signed today. Oh. That's who you were expecting me to talk about, right?
Not him. No, there was another one, but not Heath Hembree. No, I actually tried to block that out from my mind. That was that 2020 or 2021.
I can't remember. Like I don't have the specifics with that one, but Zach Birdie was into Tampa, which is an interesting group because Ben Heller. Now they've had Fire Eisen and Heller, which is also just kind of funny when you're a long fan of the Guardians and how things have gone. Those are both components from the Frazier trade, so that kind of stood out when I was just looking at like what's happening, what's going on. Again, not a whole lot going on. And then just the news of the day. Listen, we brought up Tanner Houck on the show. Kind of interesting that his name is popping up a little bit more. Maybe we'll talk about that in the after show. And then Adam Duvall. I would have rather paid Adam Duvall than pay Tommy Pham. Those are kind of the big signings of the day. But the outfield market is officially done. Let's put it that. Kevin Pillar got a minor league contract, and he might have been one of the best guys left. It's an ugly situation. But you talked about prospect lists. Are we going to play a game with this? Am I going to have to guess the prospects? I love the Eyes of Baseball America. I do not have a Baseball America account. I'll just say that. I am friends with so many of those guys, but at the same time, like, this is not a knock on them. Don't view it that way. I don't pay for prospect accounts because I don't like to go and look. I mean, like, I use it for the show, but like in my own writing and evaluation, I honestly don't want to know what others think. I don't want to risk that because I talk about many times, like one of my biggest mistakes in some regards is like not trusting myself enough on certain players. And then that's because you get into the groupthink. So what I do know is that they had 7 players in the Baseball America top 100, which was second most behind the Orioles. and you told me Espino and Williams are 19 and 20, right? That's what we discussed before the show. So the question then becomes, who else made that list?
Yeah.
And also based on Twitter, while I think, Angel Martinez is a no doubt top 6 guy in this system, I know he did not make the list based on some other people's frustrations.
Yeah. What do you think of? I was actually surprised Espino was so high. I figured with the year off, and I know it was like 4 starts, and they were great 4 starts, but the fact that he barely pitched, surprised he was 19. But also, so what do you think about that? And also, I'm surprised they bunched those 2 back to back. Like, that's always weird to me. It's one thing on a I guess it makes sense like from the Cleveland standpoint, right? But
they're very different kind of where they are in their development too, which kind of makes it a little bit weird, right? Like, I mean, I know they're at the same level, but it's like Espino didn't pitch last year for the most part. So yeah, it's a little odd in that regard, but I also feel like, listen, if Espino had been fully healthy, is he the top right-handed pitching prospect in baseball? Maybe. Like, I mean, or he maybe pitched in the majors last year and isn't still in there. It's an interesting situation to debate or look at or consider. But yeah, I don't know. It felt like they just kind of moved into a point and said, oh, let's put them back to back. So that means I have to guess the next 5 other guys. And that means I know, we'll get into the catcher rankings on MLB in a bit, but that means Bo Naylor is certainly one of those 5.
You are correct. Where do you think Bo Naylor came in at? The top 100. Of course, top 100, it's hard to guess, but where do you?
I don't know. Bo Naylor, let's say somewhere in the 60s and 5th best prospect in system.
Bo Naylor came in at 68.
Hey, it's just at the 60s, right? So,
yeah,
that's a win.
But you said 6th best prospect in system.
5th best prospect.
You think he's the 5th?
Yeah, but now I'm starting to think maybe he's higher than that.
Okay, so who do you think is next, or who do you think else made the list? Besides
I'm betting Valera is 3rd. Just the way things go. He's still a pretty big name, so I'm betting he's 3rd, and he's I'm betting he's like in the 40s or maybe low 50s.
Valera was next on the list at 72.
Oh, so he's even lower than Naylor. Interesting.
Yes.
So then I have 4 out of 7, so 3 more names to go. Brayan Rocchio. Then he's got to be. I don't know. I'm betting it feels like he's sliding a little in some places. So is he maybe the 7th guy then? Is he like somewhere in the 80s?
77, Brayan Rocchio.
Okay.
So you've got the order down already so far.
Yeah. And then I'm betting
Tanner Bibee is on there. He is 86th.
Yeah.
So who do you think the last one is?
So let's see. We got the big 3. We got Rocchio,
this is a surprising one to
Naylor. Me. So then the last player, who would be left that they might rank? I'm just trying to think ahead of Angel Martinez. Did they put Chase DeLauder? Did they go draft heavy?
No Chase DeLauder.
Carlos really liked Logan Allen back in the day, but I don't know if he's still living high on the Logan Allen dream. I know people are probably screaming at me that I'm missing someone very, like who's the most obvious guys. Like if I go, because my own list has like Cantillo and Cody Morris in the top 10. I'll say that, but I don't know they're not going to be here on this one. If you didn't put DeLauder, you're not putting Justin Campbell. Is it Arias?
No, that's where you want to go. It's not Arias. No. I wonder if Arias might not be prospect eligible. I have to look at that now.
He's still ranked in a few places, so I think he maintained his eligibility.
I don't know.
Still.
No, it was Logan Allen. You said Logan Allen.
Oh, it was Logan Allen. Interesting.
Logan Allen.
Carlos still is on that one.
Yeah, but here's where it gets interesting. Where do you think Logan Allen was ranked? I think Logan Allen makes sense in the top 100. Like he was there last year. You give him. I don't know. I also could see like the hiccup he had in AAA, taking him off the top 100 list. And I'll give you, if you didn't see Carlos's other comment on Logan Allen, I'll give it to you after you guess where he is slotted here, because that's another interesting talking point. Bibee was 86.
And you said that Allen was at least the last of them?
He is the last of them. But what is the order? You just happened to guess them all in order at that point. You just you were getting them all in order the way you were going.
So the way you're making it sound is that he might be. He's not third on the list, is he?
He's not third. No, he is sixth on the list. He is one spot ahead of Tanner Bibee.
So they like to two of them that they like put together.
I'm just surprised Allen is up above Bibee.
Yeah.
I think it would have been fair for them to drop Allen out of the top 100 because he had been in the top 100 for the hiccup he had in AAA. But I'm very surprised to see him over Tanner Bibee, and that was it. So,
we know one thing: they disagree with the MLB ranks, which didn't include him in it.
Are theirs updated though?
No, well, I'm just saying they're top 10 lefties. I would assume, with as bad as the lefty portal grouping was, that any of if he had been in the top 10 lefties,
they will not have.
I
Logan
bet
Allen in the top 100.
Yeah, I bet that not all of those top 10 lefties make the top 100 on MLB. That's something.
Why don't I'll give you Carlos's comment on Logan Allen after. After a quick word from a sponsor.
We'll come around. We'll get a good quote from Carlos. We'll jump over to MLB, talk about catching, where apparently 40% of the top prospects are with two teams. So tune in to hear where catching lives in a moment on Locked On Guardians. But firstly, sorry, that got thrown off. Listen, I love Built Bar. They're no longer they're still 15% off site wide. I was wrong. I just I had scrolled down. The Built Bar Factory Sealed Seconds are on sale. I like the Puff Box. I would recommend some of the mixes. I love Built Bar. I've been an eater of Built Bars. For the better part of 2 years, that's what I had for lunch every day. It was 2 Built Bars. That was every single day. And I didn't get tired of it because they mix up the flavors. They do fun things. It is worth checking out. Go to BuiltBar.com. Use the promo code LOCK15. Or you can go to Walmart or Sam's Club and try it there as well. And, that helps show those companies that it is a product that they want to stock. So that also helps them out. Either one, I would recommend. Check it out at Walmart. Check it out at Sam's Club. Go to BuiltBar.com today. And eventually Justin will get to try some of these fantastic bars. But right now, only I've gotten to enjoy the joy that is Built Bar.
I am going to use the code LOCK15, and I am going to order some this week. There. I will tell you how I think it is. You've sold me, Jeff.
You'll get his unvarnished opinion.
That's right. I will not be influenced. This is not a groupthink podcast. So Carlos, last take on the top 100 prospects, unless you have anything you're surprised about in that list. Huh?
I said, feel free.
Oh, so Carlos tweeted about the list when it came out this morning. There was one pitcher on the list, exactly one pitcher. This is amazing. That averaged less than 93 miles an hour on his fastball on the top 100. I think we know who it is. And I retweeted it and I said
Daniel Espino.
Yes, it's Daniel Espino. Cannot throw a fastball above 93. Yes, not him. I was like, well, looking at the list, I'm like, I know Allen doesn't throw. He tops out at 94. So I was like, looking at this list, it's easily Logan Allen. And he's like, we have a winner. And I'm like, well, that's great. I never win anything. And so I felt good. But only guy on the list, on top 100 list, that doesn't average more than 93 on the fastball. That's pretty impressive, I would say, to have a guy that, this is a velocity world with pitching anymore. Like everybody's throwing 95 these days. Everybody in the bullpen's throwing 100. I still remember watching the 97 All-Star game on I forget what channel they were showing it on. It must have been Bally's or whatever. But I remember the commentary where they were talking about Roger Clemens, and he was starting or something, or he was pitching. I don't know if he was starting, but they were like, he's one of the premier power pitchers in baseball. You know, his fastball averages 93 to 95. And I was like, wow, they called that a power pitcher. And today, 93, 95 is like, you know, sort of average-ish. And so the fact that Logan Allen is the only top 100 prospect in Baseball America's list that doesn't even average above 93, I think is impressive for those who think that he is as good as he is for him to make the list and be where he is velocity wise. But again, I'm also not, I also wouldn't have knocked them for dropping out of the top 100, but maybe he comes back strong this year and get rebounds. We've seen that before.
Yeah. It's, you know, of course it'll always be interesting to see how these things turn out and what he can turn around. And, you know, what we've seen just in recent years with guys like,
Bo Naylor bounced back from 2021 to 2022.
So you know, it's always kind of interesting to see.
And Allen didn't even have a bad year. He just had like a bad 5 starts in AAA. And I'm also going to blame the ball. Like, I'm not saying, you know, you have to, when you throw 93 and just in AAA in general, you have to be a lot finer. You have to hit your spots, especially when you're like him. But I'm also going to say the ball was a factor because Peyton Battenfield had issues. And we talked to Tim Hare, and he said he had to get used to the ball too. So I'm going to say the ball was part of that too. And now that he's used to it, or who knows what the ball will be like this year, because not like Major League Baseball is going to tell anybody it's changed, right? It just is going to change. So maybe we'll have to spend a whole season getting used to another new baseball.
So the ball does lie in this case.
The ball is not 100% honest, I think, sometimes in baseball. What's the saying that the only thing fair in life is between first and third base or something?
That's a new one to me. So comment below if you are familiar with that one. That is one I have not heard. So that is definitely. I feel like I'm always the one throwing random things out, but for once, it is you with the one where I'm like, I don't know that one. So should we move on to catching?
Yes.
So
Guardians had another prospect in Pipeline's rankings.
Yes, and the catching list is kind of fascinating. One, I think some people will be surprised that Bo Naylor is only the 8th best catcher in baseball, that he's kind of on the lower list. He gets no superlatives on that entire list. The Mets have the 1st and 3rd best catchers, and the Angels have the 5th and the 10th. You know, I was talking about how I kind of hoped the Guardians would have traded for Logan Allen at last year's deadline, if there had been a way to get that done. And he's 5th. Harry Ford at 4. I don't know if he's going to stick a catcher. Francisco Alvarez is probably no surprise to anyone at 1. Diego Cartaya should probably be no surprise at 2. And then the Pirates, I should also mention, have 2. So it's like 3 teams have 60% of this list. And then you got
the Angels, the Pirates.
Angels, Pirates, and the Mets. And then the Dodgers, Mariners, Guardians, and Rockies each get 1. But again, I'm not sure Harry Ford's going to actually come up as a catcher. Super athletic. His bat might outpace his defensive position. I'll be kind of curious, like, you know, other people who are reading this below, what are kind of your thoughts? Like, when you look at something like this, are you a little disappointed? I think the thing with Naylor is, is he superb at anything? It's not to say that he's not good. I think he's a very good player, but I mean, he's kind of almost better at just doing, you know, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. You know, he's a dilettante, a dabbler. I should also point out, though, that there is a Guardian represented in the superlatives, or at least a former one. Yainer Diaz gets a keep an eye on mention with the Astros again. I don't think he's a catcher at all. I mean, he is. If he's a catcher, he's a catcher like David Fry is a catcher. But he does get a mention, so he actually gets more of a write up than Naylor does on this one. But your thoughts?
I think you nailed it. I think that Naylor doesn't have like a standout tool. He does a little bit of everything well. What do they call that? The something of many, master of none.
Yeah, master of none. And like I said, there's a few different things through it over the years you could call it, but it's definitely a situation where.
But I mean, everything's like average, right? Like,
yeah,
you know, the hit tool. Yeah, like hit tool might be like fringe at the worst. throwing is roughly average, maybe a tick above average. Speed is about average, which is good for a catcher because most catchers have below average speed. Bo Naylor has average speed, which maybe even slightly above for him. Yeah, I mean the defense we think is average. Power could be average to fringe average. Like everything across the board is solid. Like there's no below average tools in his game for sure. I guess that's just the sum of his parts, how that plays out. And I think he's also one of those guys too that's going to have some intangibles, and that's what Cleveland wants from their catchers is the intangibles, right? They want the guys that go the extra mile, that care about preparation with defense and their pitching staff. I mean, that's why he went out and he learned Spanish. I think that's why you have a lot of teams that are signing international catchers. I think everybody wants a bilingual catcher because I don't know if you saw it, but the that Ethan Salas kid, which I'm surprised he's not on this list considering how
the
Pipeline
hype
loves
him.
new guys, right? But he was on MLB Network doing
for big money,
and just any draft pick or international, any new prospect, they're like, yeah, he's the best because he hasn't failed yet. But he was on MLB Network doing an interview on MLK Day, and I was watching, and he was extremely bilingual. Like you couldn't even tell he was. It sounded like Spanish or English was his first language, but he's bilingual. I think a lot of teams are targeting that subset now, and Naylor took it upon himself to learn Spanish. He works with his pitchers very well. I think he's one of those guys and he has the baseball background, right? Like his grew up playing in competitive tournaments in high school, and the older brother Josh got into the system early before he did, as far as MLB and then Cleveland. So he's got the pipeline there.
All three brothers have a chance to be first rounders. It's
and Guardians, and they have they have Denzel Clark, who is their cousin, who is a good prospect himself. So it's a baseball family. So I think that's just one of those things where the intangibles might play everything up. So it looks like all the tools are kind of like average and nothing stands out, but I think that's why Cleveland likes him. But even without a superlative on this list, like I don't think does Drew Romo have a superlative on this list?
I don't think he did.
He has. I'm sorry, he does fielding. He has the best fielding.
Oh, was he fielding? I was gonna say that's where I would have bet.
Yeah. So even if he doesn't have a top tool on this list, he's still 8th overall. And that tells you that just because he doesn't stand out in any specific area, that there are still a lot of things that make his game come together. And I think that's why he made the list. I think that's why the Guardians like him so much. So
yeah, I think the comp that might come up at some point, and I don't know if he's going to have the batting average that this catcher had, but maybe a lesser version, just because since he does run so well. I feel like for those of us of a certain age, Jason Kendall was always kind of like the catcher who could run and hit, had good athleticism, and then had that horrific injury. The kind of
I remember that.
Yeah, it's like one of the we don't have a lot of injuries that really just completely undid careers anymore. I've talked about like Sizemore and Webb and a few other guys, but
Kendall was one injury.
Yeah, and Kendall was like the guy where he was significantly different. But I think if everything works, it's like maybe less batting average, more power, but a similar profile. If I'm gonna sit there and play a comp game, which you either love or hate.
Yeah, it's a tough one to peg down because not many catchers have Bo Naylor's speed and athleticism. You get a lot of guys like. Obviously, the gold standard right now is JT Realmuto. I don't think Bo Naylor is touching that level, but because but Realmuto is a guy who can obviously run the bases well. He steals bases every year. He had 276. I don't know. Naylor might get there. Realmuto, by the way, was this year's first 2020 catcher since Pudge Rodriguez. There have been 2 2020 catchers in Major League Baseball, and this year was the second one. Realmuto. The last one was like Pudge back in like 97. So I don't know. It's also going to be hard for anybody to get there because catchers just don't play every day. Like Realmuto had 139 games played, Murphy 148. Like only 5 catchers this year in baseball qualified for the batting title. That tells you how little everyone's playing. So we'll see how that goes. But I mean, Naylor should get major league at bats this year.
How many? If I could throw a random thing at you here, how many top 100 prospect lists do you think Realmuto made in his career?
Like different years or different?
Yeah,
outlets?
how many like years did
What
he?
outlet are we talking? Oh, so
Any
any of them? Okay.
how many years for
Um,
any of the big three outlets?
let's see. How long was he a minor leaguer? I'm going to cheat here and see how long he was a minor leaguer.
I mean, he didn't debut until 2014, and he got his first taste in 2010. I believe was his draft year, right? And of course,
I'm
from
going to say.
Oklahoma.
I'm going to say one.
That was it. Yeah,
One.
one time.
One.
One. He peaked at 70th on the MLB 76 on Baseball America. One time. Kind of again.
I remember when
shows
he came up with the Marlins, and he was like a batting average, like mid power, some speed. Like he was a pretty middling catcher early on. Like he would steal 10 bases, he would hit 10 homers, he hit like 280 with like not a lot of power or something. And then I don't know, he broke out towards the end before he got traded to Philadelphia. And now he's a star. So that makes sense to me.
No, he is definitely the catcher. Speaking of we're going to come back in the moment and talk some more baseball on today's Locked On Guardians. Okay. I just had a brain shutdown. It was a hectic day at school today. Justin, what is our third segment?
Well, we're going to talk about shortstops today. That was our goal was to talk about shortstops. We did second base yesterday, and again, if you didn't listen, we went super deep on second base, and we talked about our second base. We talked about yesterday on the podcast where Nate Furman, who was the other one? Yeah, it was the Juan Brito and Jake Fox. That was who
Fox,
it was.
and then we decided we should throw it out and talk about Angel Martinez because most people project him at second and not short long term. And then we kind of dived into like the Diane Friases and the guys like that and then we talked about just the overall like and we talked about like how are they going to make time for all of these guys, like where are you going to play them, how it's going to go. We got a little bit.
It's a log jam everywhere.
Yeah, it's
going
to be interesting to see.
Let's the I don't know. Is there a big three in terms of shortstops? I think there is. It depends on who you're projecting. Like, I know I'm still going to stick with. I think Martinez can play short. Like we talked about yesterday, was the question is, do you think that he can play short, or do you think that he will be pushed off of short because Rocchio and Arias or whoever, even Tena? I think Tena. I'm not saying he's a better shortstop than any of those guys. I'm just saying I think he can play short. My view is that those guys are better and they will push him off. Is that where you're at? Do you think that he just can't play short, or do you think that there are just the reason he's not going to play short is because the guys in the system might push him over if all of them stay? I mean, who knows? One of them will have to go, or somebody.
I think he would be kind of a middling at best shortstop, and they've got some better options, and I think it just doesn't make as much sense to keep him there.
Would you trust Martinez at shortstop over Amed Rosario right now?
No. Amed Rosario. I'm sorry. I mean, I feel like they're kind of similar. I'd probably still go with Amed just because like he's got timing and other things used to playing with the guys there. But like, I mean, I don't think it's a huge discount between the two of them. Let's put it that way.
Okay. So that says that he is just kind of an average shortstop. I mean, Ahmed's below average. If you look at the numbers, everything says he's below average. I don't know that I think Martinez will be below average. I think he's just one of those guys that ends up being very average at shortstop. So, okay. So what, I think we both agree on the pecking order shortstop wise. It's Rocchio, then Arias, right? Or you flipped?
Yeah. No, I agree. Rocchio, then Arias. Like, I mean, I would argue that like in a weird way, Arias has both the higher floor and the higher ceiling, just because Arias has already made it to the big leagues and he looks like part of the platoon guy and he has power. But Rocchio's median outcome is more likely than a median outcome for Arias. So I said, I don't know if any of that made any sense at all, but I do feel like in a weird way, he has higher ceiling and floor. Yeah,
I think Rocchio is the safer prospect, right? Like you think that we know what he's going to be. My only concern with Rocchio, and I think I've talked about it before. I know I've mentioned it to you, maybe not on the maybe not on the show. I can't remember at this point, but I think there is some aggressiveness to his offensive profile that kind of scares me. Like Amed, like he might be a little too swing happy and not as patient, and that's what's been kind of the issue for Amed Rosarion, I think, and I kind of think Rocchio kind of has that in his game as well. The bats at ball skills might be similar. I don't know. I don't think Rocchio probably doesn't have. Amed Rosarion was really fast. Like he is fast. I don't know that. Yeah, I don't know that Rocchio is going to match that speed. Like I think Rocchio's ceiling is potentially a 2020 shortstop. That's what everybody thought about Amed Rosarion too. And people thought Amed Rosarion was a 2020 shortstop, and people had him rated as a good defender. As you looked up his prospect rankings yesterday, and we talked about this.
Yeah,
Arias, I think he has good speed. We don't really see it. Like he doesn't use it on the field as much on the bases. But he also has 20 home run. He might have 30 home run upside. Like if you're talking about just pure raw power, he has the raw power to hit 30 home runs, and he is far and away to me the best defensive shortstop in the system. Like, would you rather see Andres Gimenez at shortstop, or would you rather see Gabriel Arias at shortstop? Or I guess you can choose Amed Rosarion if you want to go that route. But
are we saying just like for this? Are we saying for this year or for the future?
Let's go the next 5 years.
I'd rather have Gimenez because I also think he can be a pretty elite player there. And then that opens second base for someone else to play and, potentially be very good at. And then, if it's Martinez, if it's Rocchio, if it's Arias, any of them can play there. And it's a little bit of a less demanding position, I think, overall still for a younger player to break in at. And listen, if you just want to go pure defense, Gimenez and Arias with Arias at shortstop is the way to go. But weirdly, they have not been like 100% all defense on the infield. The defensive focus has been a lot more on the outfield. But again, I think they've shifted
fly ball pitchers.
Yeah, fly ball pitchers overall. So I think that's kind of there. But what's your view? Who's your guy in this game?
I'm sticking with defense at shortstop. I mean, I have doubts about Arias' bat. I think there's too much chase and miss. I think there's, in the zone he's fine, but I think he is also an aggressive-ish hitter, and he chases a little too much for my liking. So the defense is alone enough is good enough to make him a starter. Look at some of the shortstops out there. Like we were talking about Miguel Rojas the other day, like the guy who traded the Dodgers. Like there are teams out there that are interested in him and Elvis Andrus and other shortstops. Some of those guys just play because of their defense, right? They don't play because they are great hitters. They are at shortstop because they are great defenders and they put up with mediocre offense. I'm trying to think of any other examples right now, but I know Miguel Rojas was one of them. He had one good offensive year. So there are teams that are willing to do that. And if it came down to it, they certainly could put Arias at shortstop and his defense could carry the profile enough. And, you're looking at a hitter with tons of talent and it's probably going to be frustrating because he has all the offensive talent in the world, but it's probably not going to show up in games, but he's still pretty young. But for me, like for right now, I would say, I guess are we excluding Amed in this conversation? Because I think we all know the answer is they're extending Amed Rosarion, right? That's what's going to happen.
I am not committing to anything. Here's my question for you. If Rojas and Arias are given the same amount of at-bats in the same situation, we're in a world where like they could both be the starting shortstop for the Dodgers. Who ends up having more defensive runs saved and who ends up being the more offensive producer?
Between Arias and Rojas?
Yes.
Arias. In
both categories?
Yes, because Rojas, like it's talking about 2023 specifically.
Yes.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with Arias just because Rojas is starting to get a little bit older and a lot of guys don't hold up well at shortstop defensively at this age.
No, and here's the thing. I agree with you. So that's the thing. Like even
Shocking.
Even if the bat doesn't come along, or I'm sorry, if the contact rates don't come along, it's still a potential starter just because of that what we've seen. Like if Rojas has been a starter for these years and there was talk that multiple teams were interested in him, then I think that also shows that Arias, maybe we're underestimating his value. We'll have to see, how everything shakes out. Like if Boston comes out and plays well, maybe they'll decide that Amed Rosarion in center field isn't the way to go, and they want to shift things around and get a little better defensively. Could there be, another team that needs a shortstop? If IKF really struggles again and Volpe doesn't translate right away, I mean, go look at the Tigers to see that there's no guarantee anyone's going to translate right away. It's like maybe they would be in the market. I'll be curious to see if there ends up being a secondary market here. If they do give an extension, I don't think it's beyond the realm of possibility, or if they decide that like Rocchio is their man.
Yeah, we will talk about the Red Sox a little bit on the YouTube's version of this coming up shortly. So that could be something worth talking about. But my top three right now, shortstop wise, I'm going with Martinez because I think he can play short. I'm not saying he's going to be a better defender than Rocchio or Arias, obviously, but I think he can play enough, and I like the bat better than all three of them. So that's why I have him number one, Rocchio 2, and Arias 3 personally. And then we have to talk about Jose Tena because Jose Tena is also one of the better defenders at shortstop in the system as well. But talk about aggressive profiles, that guy the approach is just so it's scary. He's young. Again, another guy who's young. He's going to be in AAA this year. But I don't know, the approach, we'll see what happens. But the approach to me, I feel like is going to keep the bat below where the potential is.
I feel like one could argue he's the second best defensive shortstop in this system.
Yeah, I could put him up there with Rocchio. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the bat speed is great. And it's a quick bat and everything else. But yeah, there's I think, there's a lot of upside if you can get to it. And then we haven't even gotten into, recent high picks like Yourdes Valdez, Christian Cairo, and then the young Angel Janau, who, is making a name. And listen, there was a lot of Carson Tucker talk in ours, so we'll even spend some time on him. But here's the but. We got to go. So we're going to come back for the YouTube only portion. We're going to talk shortstops. We're going to talk some Boston Red Sox. In that part, I want to thank you for listening, rating, and reviewing. We'll be back next week. It is the off season, so a little more downtime for us, which helps us recharge those batteries. Make sure you're tuning in, watching the videos. If you're missing us, watch the whole thing. Like right there, you're getting more than you would get typically before the year in terms of content, since we're going with these extra long videos. So yes, it's not as much as maybe you're used to, but it's still more than you got most of the year. Thank you to everyone who is, watching every day, commenting. Again, Gregory, you didn't comment today. Hopefully I did not offend you. I send my sincerest apologies if I did. And on that note, go Guardians, go.
I'm very glad that people yesterday got my reference to the league. I know you said at the end of the podcast, but I'm very glad. I saw a couple comments about that, and I was very glad people got that because I was a little nervous about how that was going to go.
It's I don't know. Part of me is like, is that a cult comedy, or is it like, a little bit higher?
I mean, it's not on a main network, so it was not on a big network.
No, because I liked that. I liked, this is the non-baseball part of the show. It's like, I really like Jim Jeffries had a show on there that, like, I think I was the only person who watched. So the last 2 seasons, there was a few others that, like, I would jump in and out of at various points in time. I'm trying to think what they are now, but FX and FXX and all the ridiculousness with that name. They made some swings, which I appreciate. They made some real swings on shows.
There's a lot of good shows. Atlanta's one of them I like. I just watched Fleischman is in Trouble. I recommend that. They've had a lot of content out there. That was FX on Hulu, I think, is what that was. Yeah.
Oh, and I love Reservation Dogs, which, that's like, it's kind of their darling right now. But
is that Nick Offerman?
No, that's it's kind of fun because it's like the first one that's ever like all Native American. So it's like it's Sterling Harjo, and then it's like teens on the reservation, and it's got a lot of stuff with that, and it's got, like I said, it's everyone is a Native American, and really interesting, really well done. One of the better shows on television. If you haven't checked it out, highly recommend that. If you're watching, it's only, they just finished their second season, so it's also one where you can get in. And I know Willow just came back, but there is a ton of Willow referencing in it. Like one of the characters is their mom. I don't know if the mom or whatever, but it's like Alora is her name in honor of the Alora Dannon character. So, so yeah, just some nerding out there in that.
We love the nerd.
But I guess we should actually talk some baseball. People,
let's dig deeper on the shortstops, though. Let's do that. So you said you want to start with Angel Janau, or do you want to start with Carson Tucker? Because we talked about Carson Tucker yesterday, but I feel like there's more comments about that. But you want to start with him or Angel Janau as we dig deeper into shortstop?
Want to let you. I just talked about a Willow, so I'm going to put myself in a timeout for getting too nerdy and let you make the choice here.
Let's start with addressing the comments for Tucker. We had some people who said, why not play him in the outfield? And, a lot of people are obviously not thrilled with how things have gone so far. I mean, he's only 21, but I don't think in a normal year Cleveland would have taken him in the first round. I mean, although who knows, maybe he has a full high school season and things change, and because there was talk about how he might have moved up draft boards even more the way he was playing in high school that year, that he would have been picked higher, maybe. But also, I think a lot of teams, like you said, Cleveland obviously signed him because it was a discount in the first round, and that allowed them to save money for Petey Halpin and Logan Allen.
I had an agent, not his agent, I'll say, but I had an agent be like, he is moving up boards because everyone knows he's going to take well under slot. Like that was
okay.
It was pretty much out there on blast during the draft, and that agent was a little bit annoyed because he felt like it was taken away from his clients.
Interesting. Yeah, no, I could see that making sense. I don't know. I guess you can move Tucker to the outfield. I don't know. I assume he could probably handle the outfield, but look, shortstop's not really going to be a big issue at Lynchburg. He's going to go back to Lynchburg, right? Like, I can't imagine he goes to Lake County. He's got 136 plate appearances at low A, and they were pretty awful plate appearances. So I'd imagine he's going to go back to there, and it could be him and Janau. I'm trying to think who else. Tyrese Turner. I'm trying to think who played shortstop last year at the complex leagues. Like what shortstop would be moving up? It's just Janau. Janau was the one.
Janau was the guy, right? Yeah, it's like he was one, and he already moved up. I mean, he was the one to move up towards the end of the year.
Right. So you would have him at shortstop, presumably in Lynchburg, and then you would probably have Tucker at second, maybe at third. He played some third last year. I mean, maybe Nate Furman was the other one we kept talking about, Nate Furman. So with those three, you can rotate them in. There's not a lot of other guys. Like, I don't think at this point, I have to go back and look and see how much money he got, but you don't have to prioritize Jose Pastrana at bats at this point, right? Because he's pretty much, hasn't gone anywhere. I mean, there's Fran L. Dewey, but I think he needs another season to complex league. He didn't do very well. Are we ever going to see Jose Ramirez's brother out of the complex league? I don't think so, but we'll see. Might be interesting. There's not a lot of spots. I mean, Tyrese Turner, like I said, might go to low A, but there's not a lot of spots. They can keep him on the infield. Maybe it makes sense to try him in the outfield, but I don't know. How much do you think? I mean, he's only going into his third pro season, and then his first pro season, he only got 25 plate appearances. So he has less than 200 career plate appearances in two pro seasons, not counting 2020, because obviously there was no games for him to play in. But it's not like I don't think they're gonna like give up on Carson Tucker. Like, are they going to make priorities for him to play and put his development over other guys coming in? Maybe not. Like, maybe there's other guys that are like, well, if they play better, if we'd like them better, we're going to play them over him. But I don't think they're going to give up on Tucker anytime soon. You agree?
No, I mean, there's no reason to. And they typically stay. I mean, it's not the first time we've had a high school kid recently. I mean, Quentin Holmes was their first selection, and he
was around forever.
Ever. Yeah, I mean, it was this year. He was like, I believe, right? Like, just
that was the 2017 draft. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, he never did anything at any level. And he was there for his speed. That was it. And I don't even know what is Tucker's calling card. Like,
I don't think we're talking about Bo Naylor being average across the board, and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
I don't even know what tool do you think carries Carson Tucker?
I mean, it was
I
supposed
don't
to be the
see one
approach
right
at the
now.
plate, right? Wasn't it? Like,
I don't even know. I think he hit the ball well, and he was supposed to be getting better as a hitter before obviously a season came down to a crashing halt because of COVID. But I mean, I'm looking. I know Fangraphs is hit or miss sometimes on things, but the best tool he has right now is speed at 50. That's it.
yeah.
And no disrespect to Carson Tucker. I mean, obviously,
Yeah.
Good family and he was picked where he was because of the money, but that's not his fault. But he's he's got
It's
a
an
lot to prove for
upward
sure.
climb.
That could be a good thing.
Yeah, it's gonna be an upward climb for him. He's got to kind of show that he's, that he's got to kind of reprove himself. Like I said, he was essentially a second round pick taken in the first round, so they could use that money on Petey Halpin, and we'll have to see, if it works out for them or not. But
so there's no doubt he is not going to play short over Angel Janau this year. I think Angel Janau gets the majority of the reps in Lynchburg at shortstop, and then you'll have, like I said, you'll have Tucker there still. You'll have maybe Furman at second if there's no room in high A, even though I think Furman should go to high A. And then he'll rotate around with, I don't know, maybe Franel Dewey makes it there, maybe not, but he'll Tyrese Turner too. So,
there's just so many guys that they need to.
Oh, I'm sorry. Juan Benjamin probably also goes to low A too. So Juan Benjamin might claim at bats at second base too. That's another name I would like. He's not a shortstop though, but I'm just saying that rotation.
Yeah,
it's about yesterday.
Well, so can you explain Janau to people who aren't as familiar, since he did come up this year, who maybe didn't have the experience and is just like, who's this Angel Genoa kid who's all of a sudden popping up on lists?
I mean, he was the hot prospect for a while. Like he was I want to say, what class is that? 2021? No, not last year. 2020 or 2019?
I think it's 2020, right?
I think what year he signed. I'm not sure what year he signed. So 2021 was, I think it was 2020 because he didn't play that year because he was 16. So he was in the DSL in 2021, and then he played in Arizona last year for like a hot second, and then he played in Lynchburg for like a hot second. I think he was kind of like the Welwyn Francisco, right? Like he was one of the top guys in his signing class. Everybody was talking about him and his field of hit, and just how he was like a very. I think I liken him to Angel Martinez, where I think he might have a chance to do a little bit of everything very well. Like might have a chance to hit. He might have some underrated pop in there. The glove might be good enough for short, but maybe it takes him elsewhere because it's not that good. The speed's fine. So I don't know. I think he's just another switching shortstop. He's 5'9" because Cleveland hates tall people. They're the reverse. They hate tall people as we've discussed.
They're height supremacists.
They're reverse height supremacists.
Yeah. Well, no, they're for some reason their version of height supremacy is being short. They don't want
to start all the tall guys. They
only want shorties.
Guys. That's right. I mean, Janau's 5'9" and he might grow. He's very slim. I will say that he's 5'9", 150. He's got some room to grow. He might get to 5'10", so maybe it won't even look like he's short. But yeah, I feel like Janau was like one of the better guys in their signing classes the year he came in, and then no one's really talked about him since. I mean, he's had solid performances so far. I mean, whatever you want to take for complex league stats, which should be like nothing other than, oh, cool, he didn't stink. Like if you stink at complex leagues, like if your numbers are bad there's a good chance you're not going to be good. But even then,
not
some
happening
guys
for you.
Yeah, I mean, there are some guys who just are having a hard time getting their footing, and then things improve. But like his performance there was good. So, and he was young. He was 17 in the complex league. So yeah, definitely watch out for him at shortstop. But we'll see where he goes. I think that's definitely a name to keep an eye on that maybe would have gotten more attention. But I think the way his signing class came about maybe lost him some attention. So we'll see. That's about it for shortstop. I don't have much else
I mean, should we at least give passing mention to Yordis Valdez, the recent second round pick, and Christian
He can play
Cairo,
short.
who the LSU coach threw a poop fit about him signing away.
Well, yeah, what comments did he make about that? I don't remember the comments were, but they were pretty ugly. He was pretty PO'd.
Yeah,
funny.
it was just this idea that like, well, what can we do? What can we do? It's like, I don't even know why he was on campus. Like, all of these deals get so far down the line ahead of time. It was like silly that it was silly that it was even a thing. I was like, this is.
That's hilarious. Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. As just someone who's a baseball fan.
I don't have Cairo playing shortstop. I mean, he's fine. He could play it, but I don't think he's a starter there. Valdez can play short. Valdez, I watched last year. I think he might be a better second baseman too, but he can definitely play short. He was an impressive defender, and I saw him last year. And I actually think he made some growth with the bat last year. I saw him lace a couple of doubles down the line during the playoffs with the Captains that he scorched. It wasn't like, I mean, that was the thing. He's not really known for his ability to hit. He's a very small kid. But I think he made some gains with the bat last year. I would, if you want like a deep, deep sleeper or somebody that might be interesting to like see what he does this season, yeah, I could see Yordis Valdez as being like a guy that, could be interesting. Just because the glove is there, and if he makes any sort of gains with the bat, then there's something interesting there. But I think ultimately he's a utility infielder, which is fine because he runs well and he plays every infield position very well.
Yeah, no, I mean you always need utility guys, right? So, I mean,
that's like Tyrese Turner, same thing, right?
Yeah. Yes, from last year's class, who's kind of my favorite day 3 pick. We've now talked about the entire infield, all of the prospects on there. I mean, the only prospect we didn't talk about was Junior Camaro. I'm sorry, wait, no, he's not here anymore.
Oh, you've ruined it. Oh, damn! Why would you do that? Zach's gonna turn the podcast off and go pour one out, man. He is. I hope it's a great year for the pitching prospect. I can't even remember his name.
Tobias Myers.
Bad. Tobias Myers. Jeez, I don't remember his name. That's how bad it is. I hope it's a great year for Tobias Myers. Literally.
It just won't be a great year for him here. Should we discuss? Right. Tanner Houck. I've brought him up a few times on the show, and I went and looked at his Savant data. It's actually kind of middling. Bad fastball spin, mediocre chase rate, mediocre extension, low walk percentage. Guys just don't barrel on him, and the whiff percentage is good. But I was like, for a guy who's apparently generating some interest, I thought it was interesting that his Savant data actually isn't that great.
Yeah, and he was only a reliever last year. Did he even start a game last year? He did start 4 games. Not that was an opener or what, but he's put together 2 good back-to-back seasons as a reliever. Not quite as good last year, but you know why? Because in 2021 he started for them 13 games, and I was like, why was he a reliever in 2021 and he had a 2.2 F4, and last year he was pitched 32 games, only had a 0.7 because all of his innings last season came as a reliever except for 4 games, and he started 13 in 2021. I guess the question is, do you still think he can start? Because that's where so where this is coming from is Chris Cotillo from. There's a Cotillo. I don't know. Cotillo reported from Mass Live that the Red Sox have received significant trade interest in Houck as teams explore alternatives to Miami's pitching glut, as everybody's going after Miami's pitching because they said supposedly it's available. But this is one of those situations, again, where, Cleveland's received calls on Shane Bieber or Tristan McKenzie or whoever. Doesn't mean they're going to trade him, but they've received calls, and obviously they'll at least try to get perceived value and see, okay, what are people thinking is fair for Houck? Like, does their view of him match ours? Are they trying to get a cheap deal? Like, no, it's just everybody has conversations. But there was a comment saying that the Red Sox would be interested possibly in trading Major League pitching to shore up some other positions on their Major League roster. So I guess Houck is one of those guys. I think we've been trying to make a trade for the Red Sox and Guardians for like a month now.
Yeah,
but, is Houck somebody that you'd be okay? He has only started 20 games as a major leaguer. I don't even know how many of those were as openers. Do you? Because I don't think you're making that trade for Houck if you think he's a reliever. You're making that trade thinking he could start. So the question is, who are you giving up if you're deciding to make that trade? Because that could be one way Cleveland goes, but because we talked about trying to find a third starter that would pitch ahead of Cal Quantrill in a playoff rotation. Is Houck that guy, and what do you give up if that's the case? This is all hypothetical, just FYI.
I don't know if he's that guy. He's like I say, he's kind of interesting because the performance is there, and it is. What's fascinating is the fact that that 21 data where he was the starter and his strikeout rate was over 11 and his walk rate was under 3, and then they moved him to the pen and his stuff played down. I don't know what to make of him. I saw him back when he was at Missouri. My wife was doing her postdoc there, so I got to see he was there when I was there. And he's always been an interesting guy, but he's one of those guys who had some top 10 buzz and then kind of slid on his draft day until he eventually went to Boston. I don't know. I have a hard time finding a match with Boston and Cleveland. Overall, and here's a better question. It's like outside of the Victor Martinez, Justin Masterson, and Nick Hagedorn deal, when was the last Guardians Red Sox deal? But Andy Marte as well. Those are the ones we've.
That was before that.
I know it was before that, but it's there's been a few big ones, but there's just not been many big ones.
They didn't get Christian Arroyo from Cleveland because he went to Tampa Bay first, right? Or no, maybe they did. Was that waivers? Maybe.
I think it was waivers. Yeah, I don't think it was a.
Plawecki?
Was it Plawecki from the Mets?
That's right. And then they let him go, and then because that was the year they let Plawecki go, and then they signed Leon. They were both free agents. It wasn't a trade.
Yeah. Or no, they did technically trade for Leon. Leon was technically a trade. Right?
He was on the Reds this past year.
But no, when they first got him before the COVID season.
Oh, yeah. I don't remember
where technically a trade. So they could then give him his money in arbitration. I was like, why do you even do this trade? I just remember being like, why? Yeah. This is the silliest thing.
They paid Leon more money, and they let Plawecki go, which was interesting. Yeah, I don't remember. Yeah, it might have been from the Red Sox. Yeah, it's been a while.
He was traded for Adenis Batista.
Sure. From who? From who?
For Cleveland. Cleveland traded Adenis Batista to Boston for him. Batista was a 20-year-old who had pitched, barely pitched.
Yeah, don't know.
No, I guess he had, yeah. He was and then he pitched in 2021 in Boston's rookie level league, and that was it for him. Yeah, so Sandy Leon was the last deal, I believe, between those two teams.
Big one right there, obviously. That's a blockbuster. Yeah, there hasn't been one. I don't know, who. Also, the Red Sox are trying to shore up their major league team too. They're not trading Houck because they want prospects. They might take some prospects in return, but they're looking for major league help. I don't think them trading Tanner Houck is going to be let's give him Amed Rosarion because they need a shortstop and Cleveland should move him to get one of their prospects up. But I don't think the Rosario thing is happening if they're moving Tanner Houck. That's still an if, but I don't think that's where that's going.
No, I agree with you. I think it's like I said, I think it's really hard to find this match. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think much of anything's going to happen right now, if I'm being honest. I think we're kind of in a holding pattern, and then towards the end of camp, we'll probably get a few guys who minor deals get made and done, and we'll see like who's still standing. But yeah,
Stop me when you hear a guy's name that could centerpiece a trade for Houck. And I'm going to go all shortstops. Tyler Freeman, Gabriel Arias,
I don't think
Brayan Rocchio.
I think Rocchio.
So you don't think the Red Sox would do Arias as like the centerpiece for Rocchio? Or for Houck.
Houck. I think they value Houck too much. I think the pitching is as such right now that I'll apologize to anyone who's listening where I'm like being lazy and leaning back in my chair and just punch the mic as I'm like fighting with my mic stand. I think I'm done. I just don't think. I think pitching's too expensive, and he is better than he has more upside and ceiling than like Place or Savale. And would you take Freeman for Savale? I wouldn't.
Depends on my needs. Depends on the needs. I guess overall value, yes, I would.
Interesting. So we have different valuations there, but
I don't think a Houck trade is happening either. I don't know. I don't think they're going to trade him, and I don't think that that's a guy Cleveland should target as like a pitching upgrade because I don't know if he can start. Like we don't know. He hasn't really been a full-time starter, and we don't know if the stuff is good enough to start. And you're not trading. Even if Boston were like, okay, we will trade him, they're trading him as a starter. They're not trading him as a reliever because they're trying to shore up major league needs, and they're not going to get the value they're looking for him as a reliever, is what I'm saying. Even though he has like 5 years of control left, which is amazing. I think they're going to trade him from the standpoint of, okay, you're trading for a guy who could start. Like, would you, let's say game 3 is tomorrow, game 3 of the LDS. Are you starting Tanner Houck or are you starting Cal Quantrill?
I mean, I'm probably starting Quantrill.
Yeah, that's what I mean. If the pitcher you're talking about trading for is not better than Cal Quantrill, then there's no point. That's the area they need to upgrade. I mean, this is not necessarily a knock on Cal Quantrill. It's that they need to move Cal Quantrill down in the rotation, and then they need to bump out one of Savali or Plesac, preferably Plesac, just because I think Savali is better, even though he can't stay healthy. But you have pitching to cover that. But if any pitcher is not better than Quantrill, there's no point in making the deal because you have prospects at that point. Like, just promote one of them.
No, it's hard to argue with that. I kind of agree with you. We're just kind of at that situation where it's, we want to talk about things and we want to like have fun with it, but there's not a lot of great options in general, and there's not a lot of great options with Boston, and that's why Boston's going to finish last in the American League Central and fire their GM at the end of the year. It's also why their GM might make some terrible decisions that the Guardians should be paying attention to throughout the season. Speaking of terrible decisions, we have gone over an hour here. It's time to put a fork in this. We are done for the evening, done for the week, and we'll be back next week. We'll have a build-up on the MLB.com list to talk about. At some point, we're going to reveal our own prospect lists and get into it. We'll have some fun with some debating, order, the like, and at some point I'll convince Justin we'll do some draft content as well, as that is always near and dear to my heart. I've been Jeff Ellis. What I realized is, we're so used to, this is the YouTube only, so there's no point in resetting what our Twitter stuff is. You can see it underneath. Thank you for watching, subscribing, all that jazz, and go Guardians, go.